All right, so let's review NBP Actions 13 randomizers. These are great for when you're just stuck on what direction to take. They're really, really fun when you're looking at an image and you're like, what am I gonna do next? Or what am I gonna do to start? I don't know. That's what these are for. And then we have all the purple ones here you see are the randomizers and some other ones. And then these blue ones are, we had these before in other action sets, but these are quick little automatic blend if settings. So you can change quickly your blend if luminosity settings. You'll see. Let's go one by one. So the first one is NBP Random Contrast Soft. When you hit that, all these randomizers are going to pop up a gradient map. You tap the actual gradient bar right here and you get to the randomize button. This uses the noise function in Photoshop's gradient, which is great because it has a randomizer. So the parameters are set on this one for contrast soft, that when you hit randomize over and over, like we're doing here, see that? Randomize, randomize, randomize. You get like a soft random contrast. It's just kind of shift the contrast around and blend it in. The way it's doing that is with a grayish gradient map and then a soft light blending mode. And so we get a random contrast, and you can always come back in and hit random again. And you might be like, you know what? I didn't consider it that much brighter with, stronger highlights or whatever. Cool. It's a way to play around with that. And then there's contrast strong, which is the same thing, but the parameters are set up automatically for you to be a little bit more radical. So you can click, maybe a muted one is something I didn't consider. You like that? Maybe you can change the opacity of that. See, now you have a muted contrast with the highlights more subdued. You never know. For fun and also potentially useful, we have contrast extreme, where the parameters are set a lot more radical. And because it is, look how radical that is, it's because it is Photoshop's random number generator here, you're getting all kinds of random results. It could be useless like that. It could be interesting, but you know what? I didn't consider a completely blacked out shadow look. Then I'll change the opacity a little bit. And look at that. I've given it a deeper, stronger effect. It could inspire you in a direction you don't expect. So play with that. Random contrast deep. Same variation, but it just makes everything a little more muted. All your highlights are going to be, tame and under control, but it's going to change the contrast around in the low end to give you that deep muted look, but you can get, again, a random look. Same story here on bright, contrast bright. As you play around with the random button, everything's going to be relatively bright. In this shot, it doesn't really work that great, as you can see. It's just too bright for that deep shadow. Let's change images real quick just to see. Let's go to this one, contrast bright. Look at that one. Now we hit random over and over, and we get variations that maybe we didn't consider before. Look at that. Maybe a slightly overexposed look is what we want for that sunny beach shot, right? Who knows? And again, you can change the opacity on that. I'm going through this quickly because that's the entire premise of this. Quick random exploration. We even have random contrast monochrome, which is great because then you tap the gradient again, keep hitting random, and you get all kinds of variations. Look at that one. High contrast, a little more muted and subdued, more high contrast, very bright. You keep hitting random until something excites you, like, ooh, I like that. I didn't consider that. That's kind of cool. And then, of course, you can change that one, opacity, make it a little less intense if you want. And we have a cool, monochrome. Why not, right? Now, we also have grading opportunities here. So random grade subtle. Although, that these exist, or similar ones exist on Action 6, we have them all here together as a randomizer collection. So here, you hit random, and you get a soft grade of all colors. But again, the parameters are set on all these sliders down here in the HSB sliders to make sure that everything is relatively subtle. Because you never know what color grade could be exciting for you. You're not sure. Do we take it more towards a cool direction or a warm direction? There's one that's kind of warm, kind of neutral. Down to a little bit cooler. That one will have a little green to it, some yellows. Ooh, a purple one's kind of nice. Maybe we'll go with that. See, very subtle grade. And then the next one, random grade medium. Here again, same story, but the parameters are set a little bit stronger. So as you hit random, you literally get random. I just saw one I liked and I missed it. That's okay. That red one's kind of cool. Never know, maybe that blue will work to mute things out. A little too red. But, I'm always thinking about what's possible and what's going to look good maybe with an opacity reduction, right? So look at that. We have grade that I didn't expect. I'm going to put it a little stronger for the video. See that? Create some nice shaping there just because of a random gradient. Okay, so we also have wild, random grade wild, which again, the parameters are set a little more crazy, so you can really explore. This might be something cool you didn't consider. That might be something cool you didn't consider. And even if you have an extreme result like this, here again, you might find that like a 50% opacity takes you in the direction that you want. It's more about letting your eye see what's possible that you may not have considered. Maybe you wouldn't consider adding this sort of a grade to this image before, but now you're like, wait, this is actually kind of cool and you like it, right? Okay, so let's delete that and continue on, because now we have random grade neon, which is the same thing as wild, but it's literally as saturated colors as it can get. It's not going to give you any unsaturated colors. Okay, it's going to use a slightly different blending mode to give you complete color replacement, just about. I mean, it blends in nicely, but just about a complete color replacement. So it's pretty heavy grade being in color blending mode. It's still a 50% opacity. If I make it 100% opacity, you see what we get, right? So again, that's just to make sure that you have all possibilities of pure saturated colors and then washed in nicely. Still pretty extreme, but you never know what you can explore with that. We have a random grade muted, same story, blending it all in, but this won't look much on the video. Every single variation is extremely subtle, and you can modify this once you get a color grade on any of them, really. You can add levels above it, curves, you can master it different ways to get the look that you want. But here, we're exploring more muted tones. And of course, when you do this, you're also welcome to change the blending mode. Here it is on color. Maybe you can flip it over to soft light, get a little more contrast on your subtle randomizing, right? See, you never know. Always play with it. That's the whole point of these actions, just to play. Grade fire, this one's random grade fire. It's literally just random fire tones, orange and yellows and reds and things like that to play around with. Here again, you can change the opacity, but you can also change the blend diff, which we'll show you in a minute. Okay, let's move on. We have color grade water, the opposite of fire and water, just something basically cool and warm, so you can play with the different tones. Okay, here again, opacity and blend diff is a good choice. We'll do that in a second. Okay, and then we have neutralize and random grade medium. So it's going to neutralize the image using curves first, which is similar to our action sets that we have, but then it's going to give you a random grade. This is great when you want to just like punch the color a little bit differently. Let me show you. Turn off the grade. Here's what happened. This is the neutralizing. It went from this to that. Neutralized it, balanced the contrast, got the color cast removed, and then added a grade on top of that, which we can randomize, but it helps get rid of any color casting or any white balance issues, etc. On the image itself using curves, or at least it makes it better. Okay, it's still an automatic process, so for the most part, it does really, really well though. But it's a good way to just kind of clean up. If you don't have it, as you can see, it kind of keeps the original tonalities of the image here. It helps clean it up with neutrality, and then it adds color. Just again, kind of fun. You never know. All right, we have a solid color wash. I'm going to explain this one real quick because the gradient's really crazy, okay? But as you hit randomize, you're literally only getting one color washing over the whole image, despite all the crazy gradient. And the reason why or how it's doing that, let me explain it to you. Okay, is that we separate the chroma data. So because the chroma layer is by itself, and the chroma layer contains color information or hue information, but it does not contain, and of course saturation information, but it does not contain any luminosity information. Everything's set to an even medium, 50 if you will, 50%. Because of that, the gradient map above it, you're only seeing the center color. So right now you're seeing that sort of greenish, yellowish cat because right in there in the middle. So I have the randomizer pretty rough, as you can see, roughness of 50%, but you're only getting the center color because of the way the gradient map works. Because of that, you're getting a one single color wash, okay? With the Luma data separated on top so you don't muddle up your, darks and lights and all that, okay? So that's kind of fun. Once you decide you like that grade or whatever, you can change the opacity of that. You can change the blend diff of that if you need to. But again, it's just a really cool way to get a single color instead of a gradient. Just for a slight variation, you might just want that pink wash. There you go. Now we have a pink wash of color. Could be cool, okay? Next, we have the same thing, but now you can adjust things. So once you decide on the color, once you decide you like the direction you're going, like there, okay, then you have an adjuster here. So this is a hue and saturation layer clipped down, so you can change directly adjusting what you need in case you just want to make direct modifications to that solid color that's been produced. Again, playing, that's what it's all about. We have solid color, shadow, and highlight, okay? Same story here, but now you have a solid color on top, okay, that you can randomize, and this is your highlights that you can see, okay, and this is your shadows as you can see. So we modify that and hit randomize over and over. It's just the shadows. Now, this is a good opportunity to bring up our blend diffs, because right now you see blend diff is on the shadow color folder and the highlight color folder. Blend diff is on. Okay, we can modify that manually, but we can also play with the buttons down here. These are just actions, but they automatically will change whatever layer you're on, they'll modify it. So here's the highlights. Let's put it on highlight sweep. Okay, boom. Now that color is a little stronger across broader range of highlights, or slightly less range, or even less range. See that? Can change that. Now in the shadows, I can make that a full sweep as well, makes it really strong, or just the deepest shadows. See that? So now that random color, which I can change again, see, only affecting the deeper shadows. And you look at it and you can see that's exactly what's happening on the blend if. And those buttons are useful for any of the other ones, any of the other actions. So let's continue real quick. Okay, we have radial grad map shadows. Okay, so this one uses a gradient fill in a radial manner. Okay, it's very subtle, but it creates an interesting feel. It's hard to describe it. Because it's using a gradient fill, not so much a gradient map, it starts in the center, a circular gradient, and goes outward. And sometimes you can see that gradient really strong and almost look like a really bad vignette. But most of the time, it just creates a nice blend of color. Just another way to explore color in different ways. Sometimes that, I'm going to keep clicking until I see it. Sometimes that radial gradient becomes really obvious, but for the most part, the parameters I've set make it really calm and easy. So there's a pretty extreme example. If we were to take the scale on the gradient down, then we can see there's our gradient circle in the middle, see that? But if we expand that scale back up to where it needs to be, then it creates a nice blend. It's just a variation. Maybe this image isn't the best for it, but a lot of other images, who knows? Another way to play around, right? Okay, we have random skin tone hue. Let's play with that one. That one's gonna make a little more decisions because it's gonna try to pick the skin tone, okay? And then now you hit random and you get random skin tones. See that? There's a pink one, more mid-tone, really pink one. There's a yellowish one. We'll go for the yellowish one and hit OK. And there we go. Now we have the skin tones. Because if you look at the whole folder, hold down Alt or Option, click the mask, you can see it's masked out the skin tones pretty well. Like all skin tone masking in my actions, you know, depending on Photoshop's AI, it may hit really well and it may not, but we are using chroma data to try to pull that out so it's a little cleaner, etc. But definitely play around with it. It's a great way to make random adjustments to skin if you're not sure what direction you want to take it. Okay, now we have random luminosity shift, similar to the other ones, but it creates a sort of a layer in between chroma and luma, with luma on the bottom. And as you hit randomize, you just get very subtle, smooth differences in luminosity. You might decide that that deeper look right here is what you want. It's similar to contrast, not as strong, and it just affects the luminosity with a gradient map underneath the chroma, but above the luma. Okay, pretty cool. Then we have this one. This was more of a fun one as well. NBP RGB to layers shift. When you run that, it does a lot. It basically separates the RGB channels into layers. Okay, that's what these colors represent here. Okay, so if you came here to, let's look at this one. Hold on Alt or Option. This is in fact, well, you can't really see. Hold on Alt or Option, click there. Sorry. There's the blue channel. There's the green channel. And there's the red channel. Okay, they've all been sort of separated, if you will. Oh, let me turn it all back on. But put into separate layers. All these layers need to be on for this to work. There we go. Okay, cool. So now I can change the contrast. Here's a brightness and contrast layer. I can change the contrast of the red channel actively. You can change the contrast of the red channel manually, but you have to undo it if you don't like it. Here, we can change the brightness and contrast of the red channel directly and manually. On top of that, the red channel is being sort of, simulated by this red solid color. We can choose to change that hue around. Here again, we could also do that to the channel, but this gives us flexibility to not have to undo anything or, oops, we didn't like that. We can keep it fluid. Same story on the blue channel. We can change the contrast of it, which changes the feel a little bit back and forth. See that? Even on the green. Okay, change the feel of it back and forth. And if you ask yourself, well, how do I know what does what? It's kind of the point. The point here is for you to play and find something that you like that sounds cool and go, no, that's a great I like. And your image can take you in a direction you didn't consider. That is the entire point. Now, let's look at the quick blend if. Let's run fire because it's a strong one. Something like that. And now, with that layer selected, we can use any of these. We can put it on the deepest shadows. We can put it on a little more shadows, all the way up to the highlight shadows, like what I call sweep. Put it on the midtones if we want. Midtones wider, midtones sweep. And of course, highlights. You see how this works actively. These don't have any pop-ups on them, so they work actively no matter what your layer is. So if you choose water, okay, then we can still do the same thing. So NBP Actions 13, Randomizers, is exactly that. It's for you to explore possibilities, sometimes just to play and give yourself ideas about color that you may not have considered before, all in a fun and fast way.